Welcome back to the second episode of A Deep Dive. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into rap music and how it relates to philosophy and has a deeper meaning than it just being music. Today I'm here with my AP Lit teacher, Mr. Evans.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about music.
Yeah, so the first one is All Falls Down by Kanye West. With the song All Falls Down, I have certain things highlighted, but in this song, I feel like he just kind of gets straight to the point with it. Like, the first line is already talking about this just like example of a girl and like her being self-conscious, and that she's like in a major, like he said, the major that she majored in doesn't make any money, but she can't drop out because her parents will look at her funny. And as being like, because that's something similar that like my mom went through because she wanted to go to school for music. And a lot of people were like telling her like, oh, go into a job that will actually make you money, go to school. Like, you know, they tell you like be a doctor or something because there's no hope in this thing. But it's like, yeah, if you try to express like a struggle with it, if you actually do it, then everybody's just gonna tell you like, I told you so. You should have went into like being like into medicine or law or something because this isn't gonna work.
It seems like he talks a lot more about self-esteem when he's talking about the male figure.
Yeah.
Which I think is like a great concept, you know? Like, I think he's saying something pretty deep, pretty profound there, talking about how self-esteem kind of, I mean, the way he talks about it also, it just like connects to all these social issues. He really goes to like an important depth with it, especially late in the song.
Yeah, kind of like starting of like the second verse when he like is saying that like him as a man, you might not notice that he's very self-conscious, but it's like, look at the things they like you see me do. Like I always have to have a watch on.
Yeah.
And when I leave my house, if I'm just going to the grocery store, I still have to dress up because if I don't, I feel like everybody will like look at me differently or looking at me in a different way and stuff like that.
I love it. You know, the way he describes like the effect of self-esteem is so deep. And like, you know, especially when he's talking about like the police and the prison system, and you know, I got to tell you, I think my favorite line in this whole thing though is like when he confesses that he would do it again. He would spend money on like material things before even buying a house, and he says he would do it again because like that just shows you the depth of self-esteem and again, real relatable way. You know, I think we've all been in a place where our expenses don't quite match up with our income, you know, where our dreams are maybe a little bit take a side burner to our wants or our desires. But
I like how he does that too, and I like it how he also relates it to kind of like capitalism and people higher up, kind of like the prettiest people do the ugliest thing.
Oh yeah.
And then at the end of it, how he's like went on this whole entire rant of how like we buy this, we buy that, talking about like the jail system, like we can't buy freedom and all that. And then at the end, he connects it to like, and the white man get paid off of all of that. How like we go through all this fight of like trying to prove ourselves and show our worth, but at the end of the day, we're not like the one getting credited for it the most.
I think like you're describing, there's like a really important kind of like connectedness between like the kind of like the personality and like the political nature that's just so true of all our lives, you know. I mean, like how could we separate the way that we live from politics? It's he just makes that kind of like deep concept that you know we are our social environment. Our social environment is us. He talks about the interplay between like the personal life and the political life in such a clear and approachable way, like anybody could understand what he's saying. And I mean, I think that's true artistry, right?
Yeah, he connects it back to everybody. Like you said, it's very relatable that he brings up, like, even though it's like just a short 3-minute song, he brings up scenarios that everybody can relate to. Like no matter who you are or where you are in life, you can always connect back to like, yeah, I feel like that, whether you're like a kid in school, somebody just starting to make money, or somebody who's struggling to make money. It's like you can all connect back to this song. And it just connects back to the title of how like it all falls down in the end for everybody. Like everybody's like in the same boat no matter where you currently are.
Yeah. I think that's really, this is a debut album too. This is off his debut. That's a pretty strong start. And I think there's also like a lot of like there's a lot of moments in the song that maybe start a conversation. Also, I don't know. I mean, he's very articulate about like that personal and political stuff, but there's also parts of the song which I think could start a conversation that maybe he doesn't finish necessarily. And I think maybe that's part of why Kanye West is like still kind of like socially relevant in a way, right? Like, I mean, he's always something to talk about, right? And like, I also like these kinds of, they're little lines tucked into the larger song where he talks about buying back like 40 acres. I think what's really interesting about like this line is that, although like, race is obviously like a part of this song. Like it's a line that doesn't necessarily connect other places, but that's also because like the race conversation isn't finished in America, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's talking about a piece of American history that never really came to be, right? There was no reparations, right? And like this is a song about materialism, and like it's really interesting that it's there, and it's also really interesting that it's not the point. It's like not the central point, because like it's just like a could be. It's just a conversation that could have been. It's something that could have started. It's something that could have connected, but kind of doesn't in this song. Which I don't know. I saw it there. I saw it sitting there when I was looking at the lyrics, and I think it's something that if you listen to the song, you might not even catch, right? But like, doesn't that just show something that's so true of America and like our race conversation in general? There's so much that's just like in there, but like we can't talk about it. We can't finish that thought.
Yeah, it's like something that like this one is like left open-ended because it's like this happened and we still have not fixed it. Like it still hasn't been solved, still hasn't been talked about. It's like it hasn't been ended to where I could end it in this song, so I'll bring it up, but I can't speak much on it because not much has been done about it.
Yeah. So he like tells the story about this guy and this girl, right? And it's approachable and it's interesting and it's deep. But then there's also this other stuff that like we don't quite finish that conversation. And I think I think this is a really like I don't know, masterful. I mean, this is why he gets credit, right?
Yeah.
This is a great example of I think some of his best work.
Yeah, next song, which is Brackets by J. Cole. I like how in the beginning he's like talking about like, oh yeah, I make all this money now. Everybody's asking me for money and stuff like that. And then I like how I feel like he really gets into it in the last verse where he starts talking about like paying his taxes and like, I don't know where this money's going to. Why am I paying this? When school systems like I pay my taxes and you tell me that you're going to help students graduate, but he's like they barely graduate because you don't give them the proper tools, hiring teachers that don't even look like the students. The line got us learning about heroes with the whitest skin, kind of bring about what Kanye left open-ended about the race thing, about how you're not talking about it, you're like leaving out Black history, and the people that are even teaching like the minority children don't even look like the minorities. So it's like, how are they supposed to relate to them?
Yeah. I do think that this is almost, I think this is a continuation of, like you're saying, like, I mean, Kanye and J. Cole, this was, I almost wondered, like, did you deliberately pair these while I was looking at the lyrics? But, and there's just so many interesting things in this song, like, about, like, the way that it's put together. But in terms of, like, the content and things like that, I also saw, like, that same kind of personal and political thing that was in, like, the Kanye song. Especially when he's talking about like, hey, I have so much money, like you can't tell me anything anymore, right? Like like I'm my own person, I'm my own boss. That's so personal, right? I mean, like that's certainly not true of that's not true of me sitting there listening to his song. That's true of him. That's personal. But he finds a way to like to make that real, both in the way that he like starts the song with a skit. like a real kind of like, this is how people talk.
In the middle, he has the phone call between the man, and he was talking to Uncle Sam saying like, I just got my first $1 million check and now you want half of it. Like I did all this work to get to this point and now you're just going to take half. And then that's when he goes into like, where is this half even going to? Like I'm seeing, you're making all these promises, but they're all empty promises because I'm not seeing any results. I'm just getting your say.
So he talks about something like, I think abstract for a lot of people being that rich, but like he makes it very approachable, and he does the exact same thing with the politics stuff too, right? I mean, it's like he says something, the line like, I said democracy is too slow. If I'm giving you all this hard-earned bread, I want to know. Like he just goes into this like something very radical, like to democracy is like core foundation. Like we're teaching that to like sixth graders, and we're teaching everybody in America knows about democracy. It's like a core foundational principle, and this guy's saying it's not enough.
Yeah, it's too slow. And then another reason why I really like this song is because this song is like the kind of song you'll listen to, and like when you start listening to the lyrics, it'll like start giving you like the chills because you're like, oh my God, he's right. And I really liked how he ended the song where he's talking about this mother whose son was killed due to like street violence, and then it's like her leaving the funeral and then tying it back. The last line is she remembered that she's got to file her taxes, tying it back to my like, oh, now she's losing even more money because she can't claim a child because you took this kid away because you didn't want to fix your democracy.
Wild. It's that is some like crazy storytelling. Just this continuous like infinite cycle, and it adds so much, like it's something that we've all seen, a story we're all familiar with. It's as American as democracy, unfortunately. But it really adds so much like depth and resonance to this idea that like, I love this line where he says he hasn't been convinced, right? Like, and that's something that we all take for granted, but just reminding us like, we should be convinced. We should be convinced that the system is working for us, and just reminding us that like there's so much convincing evidence that this system is too slow, and no matter what happens to people and individuals, like this political system is tough on us. It's not convincing. It's not right. Why should we be happy with this? And I think that just makes that the song is so clear. It's so concrete. He is so convincing about how it's not convincing.
Yeah, and then it's like he's just talking about like he said, it's like, it's not convincing. I'm not being convinced. He's like, I'm not seeing anything being done. And then I also like how in the middle of one of the last things he says, a money-hungry company that makes guns that circulate the country that wind up in my hood making bloody clothes. I like how he says that because it's like the only proof that we're getting from this democracy of what they're doing with our money is that they're just using our money just to create more violence. That's like you said, and adding that personal connection, saying that like now you're going back into my neighborhood and it's causing harm to like people that I know after I gave you all this money, and that's what you decide to do with it.
He has like a clear analysis. He places the blame, squarely there, like he's pointing a finger at these corporations, and he's radical, like really, like this is strong, like against a foundational principle. I just think this is an amazing song. I think this is a great choice.
So the last song we have is Kendrick Lamar, Father Time. This is from his newest album.
I have really enjoyed Kendrick Lamar. I think that, I mean, of all the artists that you chose, I think this is probably the artist that has been most present, I guess, in my life, personally.
I do love Kendrick Lamar. He was my second top artist. This whole entire album, if I could, I would just do a podcast just like going through the whole entire album because this is an amazing album.
And I think you're right to point out just how different it is in the, I guess, like the personal element.
Yeah. It was really personal to what he was going through and why, and it would really explain like why he was gone for so long, because he went through so much. So it was really hard for me to pick which one song out of the whole entire album to talk to. But I thought this one had a lot talking about his past life and why he needed to go to therapy. Like one of the reasons why he needed to go to therapy.
This is a heavy song.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the amount of like I pronouns, the amount of times that he talks about himself.
It was definitely a very, very personal song.
Yeah, you can really tell that this is a song that came out of therapy. He's talking a lot about himself, and but he's also talking about us, right? I mean,
at the end, he still like this still can connect to people who went through this, because he's talking about his daddy issues, and a lot of minority men in like the past. I can't speak for everybody, but I know a lot of people who kind of went through this similar thing of like their dad was like very closed off, and that deemed for them to be closed off and not being able to properly express their feelings. And Kendrick here is expressing that like basically like you're not alone. He even said like I got daddy issues, that's on me.
Yeah.
And how he even said how his mom tried to do it by like her mom saying like he's exhausted, but his dad's like, no, you have to go out, make money, don't cry, don't show any type of weakness, or you'll just you won't make it. And then I feel like Kendrick is just kind of trying to like justify that like this like wasn't okay, basically.
And I think I love the storytelling aspect of this, like you're describing.
Yeah.
The stuff about his mom, the stuff about his dad, and just again how just real things in this song are, like having to go back to work. Despite the fact that your mom just died because you got like, man up or whatever.
That's life. And Bill's got no silver spoon. That like even though he went through this very, very traumatic thing, he can't stop. He can't stop real. And cry.
I love that story. I love the storytelling element of it, but I also love that he like leaves us with like a brain teaser, right? Where he's like, what's the difference when your heart is made of stone and your mind is made of gold and your tongue is made of sword, but it may weaken your soul. I love that, and I just think that's something that Kendrick Lamar does a lot. Like he leaves you to think even when the song is over. He's like the Riddler or something like that. He wants you wants you to perplexed. And
then I also like the line where he said, this is the part where mental stability meets talent.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because I feel like that kind of relates to like what Kanye West is going through. Kind of like Kanye West, he went through a lot with his mom dying, like in the story. But it's like now I have to keep my mental in mind. I can't break down, but I have this like I need like it's a talent to do that, to be able to be okay, to be able to still make music, still produce for the public, and not show them that like in the background like you're like he said like I'm trying to keep balance, like, and I'm still trying to do this for y'all though, even though I'm going through all this, I can't show you that.
Yeah, I think this is a really complicated part of the song too.
Yeah.
Because he pairs that lining. It's the same wording for the most part with he breaks my humility just for practice, right? Oh, this is the part, he breaks my humility just for practice. And just like thinking about what that could even mean, just like, just breaking your humility. What is that? Does that mean like if you're humble? I always think of that as like a... Go ahead.
Like breaking your humility is like kind of just like I was always thought like a self-conscious thing, like breaking down your humility to where you're just like kind of like, because I think he's talking about his dad in this line, like his dad would just kind of make him kind of like how his dad was closed off, like breaking down like his like empathy and stuff to where he's stone cold too. But I also think this line is very much perspective bound too, because he's like, oh, my dad just broke me down just to break me down just because there was no reason. But then I feel like if you were to talk to his father would be like, oh, I did that to make him stronger because I want the best for him. So I feel like that's also very perspective of like, even though you might not have meant it, you might have meant it to make me stronger, I just felt like you were just coming at me to come at me, and like you had no real purpose for it other than just to do it.
Yeah. and that'll happen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just for practice, right? I mean, because it's gonna happen out there, right?
Yeah.
But like I was thinking about like what that could mean too, like breaking your humility. There's so many different ways that a person could be broken, unfortunately, right? But when your humility is broken, does that mean that you start bragging? Like, I mean, because he talks about being a sore loser and everything like that, sore loser forever, right? Like, if you're breaking your humility, right, are you broken in a way that's like also toxic at times? You know what I mean? Like, is he?
I feel like maybe like bringing his humility just for practice. It's like in a way to where it made him have that work hard mentality. Because even in the course, it's like early morning wake ups, practicing on day offs, kind of like tough love bottled up,
right.
No chaser. Like no matter what, I'm not gonna let these emotions show. I'm just gonna keep working,
be a
keep
tryhard.
get this done. Feelings all bottled up. It's tough love. I have to go through this, and I have to keep going, or I'm be a sore loser forever.
Right. Yeah. And again, I think a lot like some of the other songs we talked about. These songs are so great because they let you see it multiple ways, right?
Yeah.
I think the story is so personal and relatable, but yet the message remains like broad and interpretable, right? It's still I think it'll have you scratching your head about yourself, even though he told you something about himself, which I think is true of all these songs, right? But yeah.
In the end, I really do like how he tied it up too, because this was really about kind of men going through daddy issues. And like even in here, he said, I might reject the love because like I'm not used to being liked by my father. So if you go to like me, I might reject you. And then like how he like in the end, he's like, let's give the women a break, grown men with daddy issues. And I feel like that kind of is him talking to everybody, like all the guys out there. I know your dad might told you that therapy is weak. I know your dad might not have told you to talk about your emotions, but we're now affecting women with like domestic abuse and like verbal abuse. So it's like, give them a break. We are grown men now and we have daddy issues. Let's go to therapy. Let's finally talk about it, because what we went through was not okay. And now we're affecting people who don't deserve this kind of retaliation.
Yeah. I think that's a really, because I was going to ask you a little bit about that. The song's called Father Time. It's a lot about men. How does this song work for a female listener?
For me, I did really appreciate him releasing that, because I feel like there are a lot of guys out there who are like, I'm not going to therapy, I'm not going to talk about my emotions. So I feel like for such a high male figure in like the world that is like respected by many people, to make this whole song, I feel like basically dedicated to encourage people to go to therapy and talk about it, that at the end he pointed out, like, I'm mainly talking to the men here who feel like going to therapy is weak. It's like, give the women a break because you're putting through so much. Like, we're grown now. We can now decide this for ourselves. So I actually really appreciated it, because I feel like it would help a lot of people listening, because since Kendrick Lamar is so respected, and that he put it in such a good way throughout like music and not just like a speech, that it would resonate better for them to actually listen.
There's one more line I wanted to kind of ask you about. It's near the end. And he says, I love my father for telling me to take off the gloves, right? Which is that try hard kind of stuff. And then he says, because everything he didn't want was everything I was.
I feel like that line is saying like, oh, my father said I can take a break. He's finally seeing how much I'm doing. Like, I love my father, but that, and then it kind of goes back down to like, he told me to stop just because I wasn't doing what he wanted me to do. So it's basically telling him to stop. I don't like what you're doing. And he might have taken that at first of like, oh my God, my dad's saying I can finally have a break. He's finally seeing I've been doing all this work and I can take a break. And then it's just like, no, it's because everything you are doing is nothing that I ever wanted to
do. Oh man, it's this is a heavy song. Of all the songs, do you think that given what you just said, do you feel that this song has a unresolved conclusion?
I feel like yeah. I feel like it is later answered throughout the album, but with this song, I feel like it is left empty-handed of like, oh, now what? Like, how did therapy go? Like, did you ever talk to your father again? Did your father ever appreciate you, kind of thing? It leaves you asking questions about like, what was the next steps after this, and how did you overcome being put through all this?
Some of the last lines here he gives to women too, so maybe there's like an implicit kind of recognition that like he as like a traumatized male figure, not gonna be able to answer this one.
And I feel like another reason why, because I feel like maybe the album, you can say, was kind of left empty-handed, just kind of as a way of like, I'm still going through therapy.
Yeah.
But I still haven't figured it out. It's like he shows progression throughout the album about him getting better.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the end, he's like, I'm still not 100%. I need to keep going.
Which is, I think that makes like the shout out to women, like I think a little bit more powerful too.
Yeah.
Because, he's honest about his failure here. And, these songs are all very different. But I think this song is most unique in that it doesn't have like it doesn't go full circle like J. Cole's, or it doesn't have like, it's not proposing a solution. It's not the story's not done. There's not like a political finale. There's not like a crowning moment in the song. This is just like things are bad.
Yeah,
and I feel like it was hard, right?
And in this song, he even says that he has healing too, because he said when Kanye got back with Drake, I was slightly confused. I guess I'm not mature as I thought. Got some healing to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's showing that like even events that happen in the media, he's still like, I'm not healed yet. I'm not perfect. I still have to keep going to therapy. I still have more healing to do.
I think that's an important thing to say in 2022, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I wonder if this album, I love it, I think it's great. And I think I'm so happy it came out when it did. I remember, just kind of almost fresh out of COVID and all that, listening to this album.
I remember it was like when it first released, I was like there at midnight with my computer ready, and I was just listening to it in the middle of the night, and I was like, oh my gosh, like you said, this is something I really needed right now in this moment of all moments. And because there was another on here that was going to talk about the N95 song, which was like really connected to COVID, that I also love too.
I'm pretty sure when this song came out, we were still getting like
getting back
COVID
into
numbers and stuff, and like I think everyone was wearing masks at school and everything. I feel like I remember that when it came out, and to just talk about like unresolved trauma and difficulty in a moment like that, I think was so poignant. And this album will be memorable for me because of a lot of that. And I just hope that this message, this kind of like just this honesty about like unresolved conflict, unresolved traumas, I hope that continues to find a place like in dialogue, because there's a real honesty in this song in particular, I think, that you don't see in a lot of like very popular music.
I really like this album and kind of want to save it for end, because like you said, during out the whole other songs they were talking about political, it was really political and stuff like that, but this one was kind of like still having that topic of talking about issues, but it was like a whole new issue that I feel like haven't really been spoke about that much in like rap and hip hop music, kind of like the mental side of it instead of the political aspect of issues that the Black community may go through, or just anybody may go through. The mental challenges.
Yeah, and like I mean, if you definitely right, like I mean, it's talking about individuals, right? But like as a culture too, I think that like we are in a vulnerable and damaged place, and if we took a moment of honesty just to like face like our collective trauma, you know, whether it's like racial or international or just the tough times that so many Americans have been through for so many reasons for so long. I think that's how the song like really finds a resonance and is like political. He's talking about something that his dad did. He's talking about a wish that he had for his mom and for all women. But in many ways, I think that this song is like it came out of a broken country at a broken time.
It really did, and I feel like it was just a really good album, and it was, like you said, it was released at the perfect time, and it talked about all the perfect topics for that time period, because I feel like during the COVID era, a lot of people were, like, finding out, like you were stuck in the house, so it's like you really got to think about your mental like that. You didn't really have all the distractions you could usually jump to, so him releasing this album also being like, hey, I'm stuck too, like, go to therapy. We all have these mental issues. Really helped a lot of people realize that, like, they're not alone. It's like even big time celebrities like Kendrick Lamar go through this.
Yeah, he's good. He's great songs.
It's really good songs. But thank you for joining me on this deep dive in this podcast today to talk about all these great songs with me.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to talk about all these awesome songs. I appreciate the reminder about some of these. They're really...
they're good songs.
Yeah.
Well, that's all for this episode of A Deep Dive. I hope to see you in the next episode.